All right, welcome back to another episode of The Connoisseur and the Chemist. I'm here with Christian. Thanks for coming, man.
Oh yeah.
Well, actually, thanks for letting me come over to this beautiful property and shoot out here.
Yeah, it's you're welcome anytime, man. It's a good spot.
I totally agree. If you can see the mountains back there, there's Mount Garfield and what looks like a gigantic dust storm brewing up.
Oh, look at that.
That's cool.
I'm glad I'm not down there right now.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah.
But anyways, so Christian is in the homebrew club with me. He's actually my PR president. So we go around and we talk about beer to people, and basically what I'm doing right now.
Yes.
And he has his own gig where he does interviews, correct? And
yes.
You want to explain yourself?
Well, one of the things that I do is I do a monthly radio show on KAFM, which is our local public radio station.
Mm-hmm.
It's all public funded, and they have a noon show every day that is community affairs.
Okay.
And so with that, they like to bring in people from the community, talk about local type things, and we're pushing 4 years. About 4 years ago now, I pitched a show to them about beer. I was like, I want to do a beer show. I want to talk about craft beer. I've wanted to promote the Valley and the Valley's craft beer now it's been close to a decade, but real artists.
All right.
And it's just because I feel like in Colorado is well known widely for craft beer, rightly so.
Definitely.
And this side of the mountain doesn't get it's different here. We're smaller.
It is.
We don't have quite we don't have the population. And as opposed to having 300 breweries, we've got six.
Solid six, though.
But it's a solid. That's true, though. It is a solid six, and it's growing, and everybody's getting better at what they're doing, and so I feel like it's a really good spot to be. And yeah, so I do a radio show once a month with my partner in crime, Monty Haltiner, who's also in the brew club. He's our treasurer. He does the real hard work, as it were.
He also always hooks us up with merch from Oscar Blues. He always brings, I have so many tins from him.
He's the rep for Oscar Blues. Previously repped for another. They were called Goodman Distributing, and they did some Dogfish Head and Stone and real top notch.
Really?
He always has his hands in the
very
good
knowledgeable
stuff.
individual.
Yeah, he's a cicerone. He's a sommelier.
Yep.
He'd be a great interview.
You know what? I've actually contacted him. He said he would totally love to do an interview. He just needs some free time.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty.
And
much
that's
it.
the thing is he works real hard.
Yeah, he does. Respect, and he's in the beer industry too. So
right.
It's not really work when you enjoy what you're doing. That really seems like that's what he's doing.
He does. And so
cool.
yeah, he and I bring people on once a month from the local beer scene and talk about whatever's going on. Today we did beer and bikes.
Hand in hand.
Yeah.
Beer and biking.
Yep.
That's cool. Well, I brought some pilsners today. Figured tell me a little bit about what the style is, and
cool.
I brought quite a plethora of ones to try.
I see that, and one of them that I've never even had before, which is excellent.
Yeah, I've never had this guy right here. This
River North. Now I don't know if that's
River North Brewery.
Now Monty used to rep River North, and if he still worked repping them, he would be able to tell us all about it if he were here. But he's not. So anyway,
one day soon.
It's
you want me to crack this?
Yeah, let's give that one a try first.
So pilsners, in my understanding, are just ales that are pitched with lager yeast and fermented at a lower temperature for a longer period of time.
So they're not. I wouldn't say an ale fits in anywhere in the description.
Okay.
So the difference between ale and lager is very, very much the yeast.
Right.
There are definitely some other things, like the treatment is generally different. The ingredients are sometimes different between ales and lagers.
I don't know if you want more than that, or
that's a great place to start. But the main thing that differentiates an ale from a lager is the yeast itself.
Okay.
And then there's also what's called the lagering period, which is a period of cold storage where the yeast reincorporates some of the off flavors that may have created during the actual fermentation.
Okay, and that's that aftertaste that you experience.
Yeah, and it's in a lot of ales. That is, you get desired flavors
Right.
from the yeast, and their esters and phenols, and they bring fruity flavors and other things to the experience.
To the plethora of microbial action that's going on inside that thing.
And yeah, the main thing that the lager yeast does is it's really low profile. You don't get much flavor from it, so you get more emphasis on the other ingredients, being the malt and the hops.
Okay.
And then the water is important too, and that has a lot to do with how much hop that the beer can absorb. Hard water versus soft water plays a pretty big role.
Right. And the our water out here, as opposed to, let's say, like San Diego's water, that's totally going to produce two different
And
beers.
historically, a lot of the styles that came up, Burton in England used to be famous for their IPAs and their pale ales, and they have remarkably, if memory serves, remarkably hard water.
Remarkably hard water. That's got to be something to achieve.
Like 300 parts per million in that range. 300 to 400, I think, is where they tend to be. Whereas good pilsners are made with really soft water in the, say, 20 parts per million. And I would have to double check some of those numbers to be sure.
Yeah, but nonetheless, you're on the same.
So pilsner is generally made with a very soft water.
And that's what leads to a lot of its light color as well.
That has everything to do with the pilsner malt that's used.
Okay.
And when pilsner malt was first kind of came around, it was a new kilning. So that when you make a malt, you start with the grain, and then you wet it, and then you warm it, and it starts to germinate, and then you stop that germination process, and that's your malt.
Okay.
And so how you do all of that gives you different characters to the malt. Pilsner is a very, very light, probably the lightest of your possible malts, which is what gives you that very lightness.
Okay.
And then, but that wasn't even possible technologically until I want to say the mid 1800s was when that started.
Is that just due to brewing techniques? And
It had to do with the kilning, the way that they would actually heat up the malt. They couldn't control it. Before they used to do it with like a wood fire or a coal fire.
Oh, okay.
And that it's just really hot. And you get hot spots, and you move it all around, and you try and keep everything going, kind of like think of like making a roux. So if you do it hot, then you get a darker roux, and if you do it cooler, you get a lighter roux, and
Okay.
how long you put it on there. But it's kind of similar to that.
Okay.
And so less heat for a shorter period of time gives you that kind of a nice blonde. light
And that's
color
exactly
malt.
what this is. I mean, the color of this is sheer blonde. And
Yeah, and mine looks green.
Yeah, I
but
know, I
That's
kinda
because
gave
I
you
have
the-
the special glass.
I gave you the Bulbasaur
The
glass.
special glass. That's right.
You can look at mine.
Yeah.
This is our homebrew club, actually. The glasses that they give us.
Yeah, that's one of the older.
Older.
Glass. It's the inaugural year glass.
Yep.
And now we do something a little bit different, but I think part of the plan is to switch the glass up each year, so it's
I like
kind of
it.
fun. You build out your glass collection. But yeah, I did a big write-up that I think is going to end up in the Beacon newspaper locally, which is our senior newspaper.
Okay.
But apparently it's a real common question to talk about the difference between ales and lagers, which makes good sense.
Yeah.
And so I think I wrote about 800 words on that and kind of walked through some of the basics of why
Right.
it's different. And one of the main reasons I did that is because Edgewater is switching over to brewing lagers.
Yeah. They're becoming a lager house.
That's a big deal locally.
There is none of that local. Like, we don't have a lager house. No.
There's one brewery, Suds Brothers, that does produce lagers on a pretty regular basis.
Okay.
Their flagship beer is a Mexican lager. They do a great job with it. They use really good ingredients, and they have a proper way to do the lagering, which is a difficult thing, because they have these gigantic bright tanks in a walk-in cooler.
Okay.
And
So that's
nobody
the
else has
lagering
that.
temperature. That's where they do their
And
lagering.
lagering should be done really close to freezing. Basically, you want to get it right as close as you can without actually freezing the liquid.
Really?
Is
Wow.
ideal. And that's and that I don't know so much about that. Lagering came about in Germany back in the olden days.
because it's so damn cold over there.
And it was a necessity. Like I guess they couldn't make the beer during the summer, so they would make a lot of it during the spring, and then it would sit through the summer in Czech Pilsner called Budweiser Budvar. In every country but the United States, you can buy Budweiser that's not made by the
Busch
InBev.
Company. Really?
And it's in the United States it's called Czechovar, and so it's another amazing version of this Bohemian Pilsner, which tends to be a little hoppier. And
I taste the malt as far as like, you know what? It's really crisp smelling. It has like a nice subtle taste to it. It's not really like a real strong Pilsner taste, but
Yeah.
when you swallow, I feel like you are getting that strong Pilsner taste. You know, that it like almost leaves a taste on your tongue. It's real malty and has that, what would you describe that taste as? Like the Pilsner taste.
well, the Pilsner taste can go. I think it's a. I hate to use the word balanced when I'm talking about a beer like in public, but it's one of those things. It is. It's a balance between that malt sweetness and that hop bitterness. And then I always associate the floral spiciness of a Saaz with Pilsner. Whether any of these styles had that, I would still think of that, and I would look for that. Pardon me. But tends to be. It's hard to get away from the sulfur notes that come from the malt. And so
And that's what you get at the end.
Sometimes there's a little bit of that, and this one has kind of. I was thinking
like a roasted almost taste
okay,
to it.
I was thinking I was getting a little stone fruit, it's like a. It's warmer than I usually drink a Pils because that's just the way that goes.
Because we're sitting out here in
and,
the
yeah,
heat.
and it brings out flavors that you wouldn't always notice. But it's good, and I'm not really tasting too much of the sulfuriness to it. Right on the back of that other one,
Yeah.
sometimes it's hard to suss out the differences, and so I'm feeling like this is a little more malty.
I agree.
And it's I want to say maybe the mouth feels even a little softer than the last one.
Yeah, absolutely. Then this
Yeah,
absolutely.
that one was pretty dry and crispy.
Yep. And this is more of a flow, real.
Yeah.
It like wets your mouth when you
It's-
drink it. I
it's
mean, that
good.
sounds weird, but
4.8 versus 5.3 on the ABV, so there's a pretty big difference between them.
yeah, you can definitely. That has a lot more alcohol content in it.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I like the New Belgium one though. It's good. I'll definitely try it again.
You recant your statement about not liking it prior.
Yep. Yeah,
Sweet.
I'd take it back. And it's a style that's pretty sensitive.
Yeah, it really is.
If you get an old one, you can taste it. A lot of times they get funky pretty quick.
Yeah.
Some styles are good to age them, and they're better that way. And some of them it just doesn't kind of matter too much. If you do, it's not gonna. But I think Pilsners are one that really deserve, any light lager that isn't your adjunct built for sitting on a shelf.
Right.
Any light lager really deserves to be enjoyed fresh. Now, by fresh I mean after the lagering process and you
Right.
get to it, because you can. The lagering process does take a significant amount of time.
Sorry.
Happens. And so sometimes you get in a conversation with somebody about stuff, and they're like, "Oh no, that beer's it's not old. It's a lager." So and it's like, well, no, the brewer releases it when they release it on purpose. They don't release it with the idea of you putting it on a shelf. Or very very few brewers do that with any of their beers, and nobody does that with a light lager. That's just not a.
You don't need to really.
No, and it's contrary even to what the beer is for. The beer is another good term is a lawnmower beer. It's a beer for enjoying in the moment. It's not you don't build a meal around it necessarily.
Right.
It's its own thing.
Right. Yeah, I totally agree.
Not that you couldn't, because there's subtlety.
I feel.
and
What would you
complexity.
pair with a Pilsner?
Well, I like to drink Pilsner with just about anything I do, and I love to use it when I'm making green chili in the green chili.
Okay.
I'll use
that's
it
different.
as a deglazing
Agent,
liquid.
basically. Yeah.
So that's a thing I will use it for sure.
So green chili and pilsner. I mean,
Heck yeah.
that
Heck
green
yeah.
hatch chili. That's a big Colorado thing out here.
Yeah.
We hatch chili on everything.
Yeah, we just went through. We just did a half a bushel this morning. I did a half a bushel, peeled them and cleaned them up and put
That's
them in
cool.
bags for freezing, so we can have chili.
Anytime. I'll come over.
And
I'll
a half
bring
a
beer.
bushel won't last us long at all.
No.
We'll usually buy 2 or 3 in this during the season, and then we'll freeze them and use them throughout the year.
You know what I mean? Like you probably could even do like a green chili beer.
I think yes, and I've had those, and they're sometimes very good, and they're often
Wow.
based on the pilsner style. I say sometimes good because I've had some really crap ones. I've had some really bad ones.
Ones that you spit back in the bottle.
Cave Creek chili beer is terrible, and I'd say try it again. It's one of those, but man, when I have had that historically, it's been really bad. But it's
Not your forte.
probably the most widely available one.
Okay.
You could probably find that in a dozen liquor stores in town. I would
Cool.
bet. Patty's chili beer at the Wind Coop in Denver is
I
great.
love Patty's.
Is great. That is a really lovely green chili beer. And
They also have another. They have off the wall styles over there.
they do have some weird things.
Like they make like a mango habanero.
Okay.
Man, I don't remember what it was called, but I remember drinking it and I was like, okay, I need some milk because this shit's hot.
Yeah.
I mean that
it was it?
Yeah, it was. It was really sweet. The onset was very sweet.
Yeah.
And then after you drank it, you were just like,
We
holy
opened-
moly!
We did a bottle share thing this last weekend, I think it was, and
For the homebrew club.
it was Monty, and it was actually the officers of the homebrew club pretty
Okay.
much, and it wasn't necessary. It was pretty much open. It was just that's who ended up showing up,
Uh-huh.
and one of the beers we opened is a stone beer called Punishment. They did a series called Crime and Punishment,
Uh-huh.
and Southern Charred was the other one, and it was like a double version, I think, of their Arrogant Bastard, Double Bastard, and then they added a ton of spicy chilies up to and including ghost peppers,
Oh my gosh.
and then they barrel aged it, and then they bottled it, and so they did that. I want to say we're looking at close to 5 years ago now. So this bottle had been mellowing for 4 years or something.
Holy
and-
moly.
But it was still it's hot.
Too much.
It's
Too
hot.
much.
It's not the Ghost Face Killer, which is ridiculous.
Oh yeah, you don't want any
Um,
part of that.
That one I don't even think should be.
I drank some of the Ghost Face Killer. It's a beer that's brewed with the ghost chili,
Yes.
the ghost pepper, excuse me. And I took one drink of it, and I was like, "Yep, I'm good for life."
It is ridiculous hot.
Yeah.
I
And I
heard,
like spicy food.
I heard about a liquor store locally. Now I'm not going to name them because this is stupid. That has like this thing where it's a challenge where if you don't do some damn thing right, and it was like stocking a cooler or something, where if you don't do it fast enough, you have to chug a Ghost Face Killer.
Oh,
And I was like, that is going to
God.
send somebody to the hospital one of these days.
No, seriously.
I got a buddy of mine who, if he did that, would die.
Oh,
I mean,
God.
like he would. He's not even necessarily allergic, but I wouldn't be surprised if his throat closed up and
You just killed over.
keeled over. And I dig spicy.
I do
Spicy's
too.
fine for me, but
Yeah.
that stuff was ridiculous. Really, no beer to it.
No,
I mean,
it's
it
just
was like drinking hot.
Drinking salsa.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess I'm gonna crack another one of these. I'm gonna drink the Mama's Little Yellow, I guess, by Oscar Blues.
That's a great one.
That last beer was really good.
It is good.
The Pilsner. I'll probably buy those actually.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I definitely would if I were up at Hot Tomato or something and needed a cool beer to go with my pizza. That's another classic pairing.
oh, vinegar and vinegar. They go.
Yeah.
Like they go.
Get your Pilsner and your pizza together.
Yep.
I don't think there's a better beer for pizza.
No.
And pizza can come in every flavor and variety, so that's saying something.
That's quite an array of
Yeah.
pizzas to one
But see,
beer.
that's a nice thing about Pilsners. It really is. It's soft enough to go with pretty much anything, but it's got enough, I think, flavor.
This is
But
very.
it doesn't necessarily get buried.
This is definitely a lot more of a nose
Does it?
smell than the other two.
So I want to say that this one, and I'd have to talk to Monty or check on the website, but I want to say this one is more of your Americanized version, which is
It's got really good color.
yeah, it tends towards
Still the
those
golden color.
American hops. And yeah, that one's back to the little bit lighter
Yep.
than we just had. The Bohemian Pilsners tend to be a little darker because often they use a decoction process to brew them.
Okay. What does that mean?
So when you brew it, when you brew beer, one of the main goal is to get sugar from complex carbs. So you need to take your complex carbs, enzymes break those up
Right.
and make them into small sugars. Because
Monosaccharides.
the yeast will eat the crap out of those small sugars and turn it into alcohol, but they won't do anything to the complex ones. So there are a couple of basically to do that you heat up your mash, which is water and grain together.
Right.
And you heat it up usually in steps.
So you mash it.
Step mashing before there were grains specifically made for brewing.
Mm-hmm.
It was more difficult to do the process of the sugar conversion, and
Okay.
so you stepped it in little steps to get to the first one. I think is acidification. You make your mash a little more acidified
Yeah,
that way.
134 degrees to
Yeah.
148. And
Very,
then
yeah,
152 to, and then you finish at like almost 170.
right. And so
Yeah.
that last one is the denaturing. That last one is to stop the enzyme action, and that sets the amount of sugar, and so you can leave some complex sugar for mouthfeel.
Okay.
But the first rest can start as low as like 98 degrees. Most of the time you get to skip over that because you're working, basically we can do a single step mash now as a home brewer, and most pro brewers will do a single step mash where you mash in between just kind of broadly 148 and 158.
Right, yeah, I don't ever brew over like 160 degrees.
Yeah, and you
know?
shouldn't, because then you'll start bringing out tannins.
Yeah.
And you'll get a beer that tastes more like tea.
Yep.
Um,
Well, that's and generally what they used to do is they would leach the tannins out of the grain, and that's what they used to tan hides with.
That's interesting.
So that's
love
the reason that it's
There
called
you go.
tannins.
There you go.
Yeah.
But the decoction is where you take the mash and you heat it up. Basically, you start with a thick mash, so it's about, let's say, just for argument's sake, 50% water and 50% grain.
It's oatmeal.
Yeah, and then you take about half of that out and you boil it and you add it back to your pot, and that raises the temperature. You let it sit,
Okay.
and then you do the same thing again, and that'll raise the temperature another step up.
Okay.
And so you can do that either like 3 or 4 times, and there's math that you do, so you know how much to pull out,
Math.
heat up. Yay, math. And
As brewers, we do a lot of math.
You do a
Actually,
lot of
there's
math.
a lot involved.
Oh, yeah.
In, and conversions and swapping
Sure.
over. There's the bricks. Like
Yeah.
ABV or your specific gravity, and
yeah, you can even bring algebra to the party if you want.
oh,
to.
you
There's
totally
tons
do.
of fun.
Oh
Tons of
yeah.
fun.
Who doesn't love algebra?
But when you heat up that mash in the boil, you actually get some caramelization because it's touching the hot pot. You stir it around.
Okay.
And so that caramelization brings the color and a little bit of sweetness, and that's where your bohemians tend to get a little more of a dark.
Just due to the
flavor.
just different ingredients. And,
Yeah, or the actual.
Or the
technique.
step mash, excuse
Yeah,
me.
the
Yeah. So
technique.
due to the step mashing, that's the reason that you're gonna get. So if I step mashed my stout, actually no, 'cause stout's really dark beer.
It's dark to begin with.
Yeah, maybe if I like.
It's the decoction where actually, as opposed to step mashing, because you could step mash with any number of ways. You could do a steam jacket and step mash and never get caramelization because
Because you're never
because your
cooking,
pot's never hot.
Yeah.
Or you could do a single infusion mash where you pour everything into a hot as thickened pot and just stir it around and then let the temperature kind of come down.
See, look at that. I mean, there's so many different styles and ways to brew beer.
That's right.
Like I thought, I was like, oh yeah, let's brew a pilsner, and then I bought like the brewer's best kit, and
Oh,
I
yeah.
brewed a pilsner, and it came with just general stuff. Like it wasn't anything crazy, and
Sure.
And now like here we go, we got hops, and like I think I added 2 ounces of hops. I don't even think I added 2. I think it was only 1 ounce of hops for my 5-gallon batch.
Wow. Knowing what that comes in, that's not very much.
At all.
And depending, of course, on when it goes in, you're either going to get just bitterness from it, or because was that a single addition or was that
Single, yeah. So it was
Yeah.
throughout my boil that I added it.
Okay.
And I think it was 35 minutes into the boil that I actually added it. So it was really supposed to give it that hoppy kind of bitterness at the end of your taste of your beer. And it turned out really well.
Good.
We drank it in like 4 days, so it was pretty.
That's good.
It was good.
That says something. That says something for
You
sure.
drank 60 beers in 4 days, like.
Yep.
No, you know what? I've noticed that I still go to the liquor store. Like I
sure.
have over 200 plus beers in my beer cave right now,
Yeah.
and I still find myself going to the liquor store and okay, what's this try? What is this like? And And the only time that I'm really busting out my beers is like when all my friends come over, and I'm like,
Sure.
"You guys want to get drunk on my beer?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "What? Yeah, absolutely." You know, and it's really just kind of evolved. Like I first got into the brew club, I'd only brewed like one. I had like I used the Mr. Beer kit, you know,
sure.
and like
That's the most common beer intro.
Oh, yeah.
When you're a brewer, that's like, I love asking people when, you know, what was your first beer that you brewed, and it's almost always a Mr. Beer kit that they got as a gift.
yeah, I got it as a gift as well. Yeah. Plastic fermenter, and then, you know,
Yep.
there is no secondary fermenter, and there's no filtration. You just suck it out and drink it right out of that little.
It is the most, like, it's the easiest way.
It really is.
And
easy.
you can make some really good beers in that easy way.
Really.
I've gone back and my first beer I did an all grain kit, and that's not entirely true because it was about 50% was from grain, and then I added a significant amount of dry malt extract.
So no liquid malt extract.
No, I've only brewed with liquid extract one time, and I did not like the results.
Really.
And it was the major difference in what I did, and so I haven't ever gone back and tried liquid again.
Okay.
But when I've used the dry, I've been pretty happy with my
Yeah.
results.
I like the dry. I can.
But I went back and brewed a straight up partial boil extract batch just to see how easy and cheap I could do it. And I did a full on 5-gallon brew in about 3.5 hours start to finish, and made a quality IPA. It wasn't
Really?
great by any means,
But it was good enough for you to
but
drink
was
it all.
good. It was good.
It wasn't funky.
It didn't taste bad. It didn't have, I don't know, it was probably a little bit one note. It probably didn't, I don't feel like it really had the complexity behind
Right.
it that I wanted, but
So you know, like every time I start shooting videos, we always start with something, and then we just go into depth about all these other styles and everything. And I like it because beer, the different styles connect. I mean, a lot of the ingredients that you use for this style, you're going to use for that style, and the hops that you used in here, you're going to use for this one, even though it's a different style altogether. Like,
Sure.
I used an IPA hop in my Kolsch.
oh yeah,
Just as an experiment. I was like, well, why not? Let's
see
do it.
what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it turned out pretty good, actually. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a sessionable IPA, really. That's all it is, and it just has real floral notes. But
Well, if you're not trying to just hit a style like according to the guide, like you're not, then you have every possibility in the world, and you can do anything you want.
oh yeah,
And
it's limitless.
the one of my favorite cultures I've had recently had a really kind of like a Chinook hop character to it that wouldn't be traditional.
Right.
And if you tried to enter that into a competition as a Kolsch, probably wouldn't do very well.
They'd be like,
because
this is a
didn't-
horrible
yeah.
Kolsch. Right.
But it was a great beer.
right. Yeah,
So-
you know, like it's really wild how many styles, how many different variations, the ways you can brew, the equipment that you can brew with, the sanitation problems. I only say that because I've had sanitation problems lately.
And that is, as a brewer, whether you're a home brewer or a pro brewer, is one of the that's the biggest concern.
It really is.
When it comes right down to everything else follows whether or not that beer is produced cleanly.
Right. And crisply.
Yeah, and it's the quality of the product is hinges on that sanitation.
Yeah, and you know, I got into brewing beer, and I was like, oh yeah, let's brew beer. It's all about brewing, and no, it's all about cleaning. You clean 90% of the time and brew 10% of the time.
It's so true. Ask anybody who's done it, and they will tell you it is definitely about cleaning and sanitation.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's about procedure and
all of it.
The best. If you've studied cooking, it's mise en place, and then so you have to start with.
You got to put that souffle in at the right temperature, okay? Because otherwise it'll fall. I mean,
it's all got to be right. It's all got to be right.
And it's like just really opened up my self to like, okay, what's this beer taste like? All right, I can tell now almost like what kind of hops they're using.
Sure.
Like I drank an IPA the other day. It was an Imperial IPA, and it was actually a guy he's one of the guys in the brew club. Forgive me, I can't remember his name. I'm terrible with names. If everyone had a number for a name, I'd be okay, but they don't.
Something neat.
But anyways, I tried his IPA, and he used El Dorado hop hash instead of using hops. And I called it. I was like, these are Eldorado hops, aren't they? And he was like, not really. It's the hop hash, but good job. And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm going somewhere. I'm learning, you know, like.
Yeah.
But when I try these pilsners and stuff, you can't really pinpoint a hop. I guess we can try this one, the Freestyle Pilsner.
Yeah, let's try.
I mean, it's got a picture of a hop on the front of it, so that's got to be some consolation to there's hops in it.
There's got to be hops in it.
Yeah.
It's beer.
And then we'll leave
There's always hops in it.
the full sale for last.
Okay.
Because like you said, that's kind of the most far out there beer that we have
it's
here.
it's likely
I'll
to
pour it
be.
for you.
Okay. It's likely to be the hoppiest.
You're
of
my
the-
guest.
Appreciate it. I'm often not the guest. I'm often the host. So
Right,
I will
yeah.
sit back and allow myself to be the guest.
It's probably a different perspective, you know,
It
and
is.
like I'm asking you questions. And
It's a lot of fun. I have to say I appreciate it. I like talking about myself.
yeah, and maybe I'll get on your interviews, and then I'll do a bunch of research about a
Heck
style
yeah.
or something, and then, you know.
Well, we should just have you on the radio to just talk about what you're doing locally about beer. You know.
God, I love beer.
Yeah.
There's gonna be a lot of editing. I told you, it's hard not to talk about
Sure
beer for like hours and hours because that's your job. I'll be drinking one of these later while I'm doing it. But you really can go just like wild with the different styles, and like this is a pretty tight knit style.
Yeah.
I mean, for the most part, you use general grains, you use general yeast. Your temperatures are generally the same. But look, all of these were totally different. Every single one was different in its own way. Like darker,
Definitely.
lighter, more sulfuric, more effervescent in the sense that you smell the hops immediately as you're drinking it, but then the hop taste resides and you taste the malt at the end, you know, like
Yeah.
it's crazy the variation that you can actually instill in your styles of beer. Like it still is mind blowing to me.
It's very complex. There's a lot of different things that go into the making of the beer between ingredients and
Right.
technique, and you can change the outcome by making little adjustments.
The tiniest adjustments. You know, I like cannabis, okay? Like I
Yeah.
went to school for horticulture, and like I was like, oh, growing weed is the best. Like look at all these different ways. Look at all the ribosome and all the microbial action and using chelated minerals and stuff in that. Now I got introduced to craft beer. I haven't been growing any weed at all because I want to grow hops.
Sure.
And I would rather have a giant distillery or a brewery as opposed to like a giant grow.
Sure.
Like, it's kind of crazy how, you know, your priorities shift and change,
Well, I
but
can see it. And
I mean, don't get me wrong, I still love cannabis. We live in Colorado.
that's true. That's true. And, I know that there have been a couple of attempts at cannabis beers.
Oh, had one the other day. Not a good idea.
Well, I think it could be done.
I think it could be.
done. I think it's probably a very expensive proposition to do it right, because you couldn't just throw in leaves and stems. And
No,
sticks.
man, you
You
can't.
have to use the buds.
No, you can't do that.
And
The flower of it is the necessity. It's a
Yeah.
cousin to hops.
yeah,
I mean, it is.
Yeah.
Sativa sensimilia is a right-handed isomer to the hop plant. I mean, you smell a hop, and sometimes they smell like weed.
One of my favorite beers in the entire world is called, I think it was called Kind IPA. I think it was Kind Pale, actually. Made by Mountain Sun Brewing in Boulder.
Okay.
And
Familiar with them.
I mean, the whole beer, the reason that I loved it, and one of the main reasons that I got into really enjoying beer, was because it tasted like good smoke. Tasted like some good indica.
Just some good old bud.
It was lovely, and it was just bright, and it was green, and it was
It was great. I was
and-
drinking it and reminiscing the entire time.
yeah. Damn, smells like 15 minutes ago in the car.
Oh shit. You know, like a lot of the viewers that I have don't even live in Colorado, so like they live in states that cannabis isn't even legal.
Right.
Like
Which is just wrong.
you'll go to jail for that.
That's wrong
And,
shit. That's wrong.
Nah, man. Cannabis and beer go hand in hand.
They
And
sure do.
the cultivation process and, you know, really like the microbial action, and I don't know, I like beer. I like brewing beer more than I like growing weed now. And
I can totally see it.
I was all about it.
Growing weed can be tedious.
It's very tedious. You have a
can-
schedule. Everything's scheduled.
Yep.
But you know what? In
It
all
takes
reality,
forever.
yeah,
Well,
you kind
It
of.
takes a long time.
It takes at least 3 months. Okay,
Yeah.
at least 90 days.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm talking about at all. No idea. And at all. But with beer, you get all these ingredients. You follow this procedure, and you kind of just give it up to the beer gods. Like, what's gonna happen? You know, and like that's not something that really you want to do with cannabis. You're like,
Sure.
no, I want totally strict regimen, and I want to see my plants. And anyone that says they grow the best weed, they don't do shit. You have to listen to the plant. You have to say, okay, this is what the plant needs, and it's the same style with beer.
Sure.
I mean, you look at your beer, you taste your beer, you're like, okay, this is what I did, and I don't think I like that, or wow, I think I really like that. That's what I'm gonna do next time, and just
Yeah.
keep track of all your procedures.
Learn through it. Yeah, I always like to say that the brewer doesn't make beer, the yeast makes the beer. The brewer makes.
Makes the food for the yeast.
That's right.
You know?
So that's the.
So it's the same deal. You don't grow cannabis. Cannabis grows itself. You just listen to the plant. Beer does not brew itself. We brew it, but the microbials do the work
Yeah.
that hopefully we intend on.
That's
you know?
right.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Thanks for coming out today.
Yeah.
I really had a good time.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
And I need to get on your radio show.
For sure.
I would love to.
Yeah, we'll do that soon.
Well, that about does it. We drank 5 beers.
Good.
They were really delicious.
Yeah.
The Pilsner style is quite elaborate. I didn't realize that, you could go from being dry hopped to, I'm sure they did this in the boil because this was nowhere near as hoppy as the
No.
wholesale.
No, it was a real.
And then
real
the little yellow pills, that was just a general, like American style Pilsner.
Yeah.
Real malty taste, not really hoppy. And then again with this Bohemian, a darker, more, it's like almost a heavier Pilsner. And then also the River North was just like the base, basically, what I would say a Pilsner is. I mean,
Yeah.
it was real light, real
Clean,
malty. Yeah,
drinkable.
super smooth,
Yeah.
but higher alcohol content than normal.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
A little bit. Not way out of whack by any means, but we tend to do that as Americans.
Yeah, oh yeah, well that's what we... Bigger, better.
That's right. That's right.
And you know what? Thank you guys for stopping by and watching this quite extensive video on one style of beer.
Great.
You know, if you have any questions or comments, hit the subscribe button. Let me know what's up. If you want to see a style of beer on my channel, just let me know. I'm more than happy to drink beer for you guys. Thanks again for coming. And you know what? Thank you, man. Seriously.
Yeah.
It's always a pleasure.
Heck yeah.
And I'll see you on Wednesday when we're going to the brew meeting, right?
Be good.
Yeah. It's always a fun time. I love those cats.